Good morning. It is 5 a.m. here at Bissell Maple Farm. I pulled an all-nighter. I pull a lot of all-nighters. So I wanted to talk a little bit about Steve Stallard and BLiS out of Grand Rapids, Michigan. Got a text from Steve tonight, and it just reminded me, we sat down for an interview 3-4 weeks ago. You see, I thought I invented bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. I did not. Steve Stallard invented bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. He was so far ahead of everybody, like 20 years ahead of everybody. To this day, he makes the best bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. When I figured out that I didn't invent bourbon barrel aged maple syrup, I thought I did. After a quick Google search, there was a couple other companies. I bought the 3 products that were out there, 4 products, and Steve's was by far the best. You know, you could tell he had developed his product. I like this product so much that I tried to make my flavor exactly like Steve's because his is the best. He and I have been having conversations just about the industry, what we're seeing. Some of it is really sad. I mean, it's sad. And another leader in the maple industry, she said, honestly, Nate, it's surprising that this stuff hasn't happened sooner. And she's right. There's a lot of fraudulent bourbon barrel aged maple syrup going on. So I wanted to talk about Steve and being the first guy to make barrel aged maple syrup. I appreciate the trailblazing he did. And that's why I wanted to sit down with him, talk to him about barrel aged maple syrup, the industry, what he's seen. I mean, he was the first guy to do it. He has seen a lot of things come through the maple industry, and specifically the craft maple syrup industry. And he's just been kind of watching. He's a very humble guy. You really have to draw it out of him. He is not going to brag, but this guy, in my opinion, has changed the maple industry quietly, and he doesn't get the credit he deserves for what he's done. So I make sure that if anybody asks me, like, who invented barrel aged maple syrup, it's Steve Stallard. It's not even close. He is the OG. So I hope you enjoy the discussion that Steve and I had in Grand Rapids, and enjoy. I'm super curious what made you think about putting maple syrup in a barrel.
I started while I was chefing, I was cooking, which I did for 25 years. We always house smoked our own salmon. And one of our best cures on the salmon was dried maple sugar and bourbon. And so we did a bourbon, maple syrup, cured salmon. The combination of it going together was just unbelievable. I thought, well, what if we just take a barrel of syrup and stick it in a bourbon barrel and see what happens? And that's what we did. We had a bourbon maple cure at another place that I worked at, where it was a R&D director for an aquaculture firm, and we had a smokehouse, and that was one of our top sellers there. It was ardent char that was cured with maple syrup and bourbon. So we put it in a barrel and crossed our fingers.
How long did you leave it in the first time?
Almost a year.
Did you taste it as it was aging?
Yes, I did taste it as it was aging. The thing about syrup is you learn all the intricacies of how it ages. It's a pretty dense product, so dipping into the syrup and tasting it, you're really not getting the surface contact flavor. It really starts to come through when it's pulled out of the barrel and blended and mixed. And that's when a lot of the flavor profile starts to come through on the bourbon. Sticking a wine thief that we use right down in the center of the syrup where it's so dense and it's not in contact kind of misrepresents it a little bit because it changes once it's really been mixed.
So what, you had a little bit of runway there. You're the OG, you're the original.
Well,
So
yeah,
here's, Well, here's the thing. I'm curious, like, how long? Because you're a pretty quiet guy. You're not somebody that's out there shouting from the rooftops that, hey, I invented bourbon barrel aged maple syrup. So my question is how long did you have before other people noticed?
Probably 5 to 6 years.
To establish it?
Yep.
No kidding.
Yep.
And then I thought I invented it.
Well, it's a great idea.
I thought I invented it. And then I came home and I'm like, I got this great idea because all these beers were being barrel aged. And then I did a quick Google search and here you come up. I'm like, crap. So I bought a bottle of yours. I bought a bottle of 2 other ones and we tried them all. And it wasn't even close. Like, I was like, this is ridiculously good. So I tried to make it match your flavor.
Oh, that's flattering.
So I'm like, man, this is the best flavored one. To this day, you are the standard.
Thanks. I really like what you're doing with the Pappy wine too. That's sensational syrup. And the baseline of your syrup is just very high quality.
Yeah, we don't put junk in the bottle.
Yeah.
Speaking of which, what are you seeing now, Steve? I mean, you have this credibility. You're allowed to talk about the industry or the category within the maple industry. In my opinion, you have free reign to talk about what you're seeing. Mm-hmm. And what are you seeing?
I'm seeing a lot of it. There's not a lot of care in barrel selection on what you're aging in. Obviously, higher quality barrels will produce higher quality. As I like to say, when we searched barrels to age syrup in, we started out with several different houses, and it took basically 6 or 7 tries before we really found where we wanted to be. And then we made arrangements to procure those type of barrels, and we've been using those ever since. I think so. That's really important. So anybody that makes a maple syrup and throws it in a whiskey barrel, it's not necessarily going to be very good. And it really makes a difference on how long it's been aged, the whiskey, is what's really going to happen on the barrel, on the end result. So I think there's a lot of distilleries that are putting out fast whiskey, 2, 3 years, 4 years. It takes a long time to mature whiskey out, to mature bourbon out, and it's something you really can't rush. And so I see people rushing it, and I see people using just grabbing any old barrel they can grab and throwing syrup in it and just saying, well, it's bourbon barrel aged syrup, and not really taking the care and the craft and the palate to be able to taste what's going on. You put stuff syrup in a Pappy barrel. Pappy's pretty good whiskey. Mm-hmm. So you know what you're going to get out of that.
What have you seen? Are all of these people entering the market, is it hurting your sales?
I think it's increasing our sales, strangely enough.
That's interesting.
The category is getting very large. I've lost track on how many people are doing it in small bottlers doing it.
There's got to be 1,000 or so.
There has to be, because it's gotten really popular. But no, it's not hurting our sales. Possibly in our retail, but we're very much a hotel restaurant driven company. We're a chef driven company. So
you dominate in the food service industry.
It's something that I know and worked in for a long time.
Yeah.
And we know that chefs need creative products, creative ingredients to make their dishes stand out and more exceptional, and that's what we try to do is in our vinegars and soy sauce and fish sauce. We try to do things that have a pretty dominant flavor profile and really separate chefs in their dishes and really amplify flavor, because that's what we're all about. And if we can take a fish sauce and barrel age it and for nearly a year, and it goes through three different barrels, and what comes out is it's incredible. That was my biggest surprise, is the fish sauce and how it smooths out the blend of the maple, because we use the maple barrels for the fish sauce, and so many derivatives off of it. But you know, chef-driven company, just love to do things that chefs can use, and they can put on their menu with different flavor profiles. So that's our company.
What was the biggest mistake early on with barrel aging? Like, what are the biggest, like, your heart sinks, you know, that gut, you walk in and you're like, oh no. Have you had some real big boo-boos or?
Fortunately not. I think the biggest mistake is making sure your barrels are wet.
Yeah.
That's where you're going to get issues. And we didn't know the strength of syrup on them. You know, if their heads are going to blow off, because the weight difference is not, it's much heavier than whiskey.
Right.
But we've never had an issue there. But no, I've had a few gushers that are a mess to clean up.
What
and
is
it's
the,
surprising, you put a gallon or 2 gallons of syrup on the floor, it spreads out in a long ways.
It does. It's like oil. Looks worse than it is.
And it does. You think you're just losing thousands of dollars, and it's really not as bad as it looks. It's just the cleanup.
Yeah. Do you know what maple syrup's good on?
That's good on everything.
Anything but the floor.
That's right. Yep. Sweet, savory.
Yep. I'm wondering what you have tried that didn't work. Like, you're like, I'm gonna try this. That didn't work.
You know what? We haven't had I can't really think of any.
Okay.
And I'm not trying to be
Yeah.
arrogant or narcissistic. I think we put so much thought into it,
Mm-hmm.
and our team we've all had 20 or plus 15 to 20 years of cooking experience. So all of our team together here, they're all chefs. They all have palates. They all taste. So I like to say that we have 100 years of cooking experience or more.
Yeah.
And so we all taste things. So we evaluate it. We sit down. We talk about, is this gonna work? Is it worth putting our product in there? Is it worth trying to do this? And usually we get it pretty refined out, and we can finish whatever we're doing. We just know that what comes out of the bourbon, the maple barrels after they're done, it creates a lot of magic, both in the brewery, the distilling field. It creates a lot of magic with the value-added products for continuing aging. You know, we do a hot sauce and we do a soy, and the barrel exited after we have it done. Creates its own line of products.
Yeah.
And in multiple dimensions.
So, how many different things have you seen a maple bourbon barrel be used for?
Well, we have kind of a circle that we have with. We have a maple barrel, then it goes to one of our brewers that we work with real closely with founders. They would do their Canadian breakfast stout.
Mm-hmm.
And the Canadian breakfast stout, then we would use those spent barrels. They go to Louisiana, and then we make a hot sauce, and we age the hot sauce in the barrel that had the maple syrup, then the stout, then the hot sauce, and then the hot sauce barrels. After that is dumped out, then we age, because there's a nice spice flow to that barrel. There's a nice, it's almost like...
You use the hot sauce barrel?
We then take the hot sauce and we make our steak sauce with that.
Get
So
outta
the
here.
steak sauce goes in the hot sauce barrel and ages and gives it more spice and more flavor. And actually the vinegar...
It's just enough in there.
Just enough. And the vinegar reacts quite well with extracting those the flavor profile. Even though it's a little bit muted after that many washes, but they still pick up a little hops, and they pick up a little caramel and vanilla notes, and and it smooths it out. And then after the steak sauce is gone, that line kind of just goes to flower pots. We pretty much squeeze the flavor right out of them.
What do you got, Mike? What kind of questions do you think you would ask?
When you first started doing your bourbon barrel aged maple syrup, like what, trial run quantities, like what kind of experiments were you doing, to try to hone in for?
The very first one was done in a basement with one barrel.
No kidding.
Yep. Before I had even started the business at all. And then it was one of the barrels that leaked, and it was also one of the barrels that was, I just did not like the flavor of it. I'm not going to name the distillery. So then I started chasing drinking the bourbon, which I like bourbon.
It's an occupational hazard.
It is an
It's
occupational
also,
hazard.
It's also a great thing too.
It is, and I started finding, well, what flavor profile are we looking for, you know? And my kind of idea on bourbon is I want bourbon to let you know you're drinking bourbon, you know? And so I wanted something with a little more punch, and that really, as far as what I've seen, what we age, it comes through in the syrup. So that's, and then we started out with, I would say like the first 2 or 3 runs were just a couple of barrels here and there in the basement and just trying it out and kind of short filling them a little bit. Then we full out got an investment and bought 20 or 30 barrels.
When did you know you had something?
When the first co-packer sent it back to me and said, we can't pack this syrup anymore because it tastes terrible and it's ruining our systems and we have to clean everything out, so you got to find somebody else. I went, that might be a good idea. There's some really nice flavors going on in there. And sure enough, when it came back, I went, wow, this is fantastic.
No kidding.
Yeah.
So you sent the aged maple syrup to someone to bottle them.
Yeah.
You were happy with the results.
Very, very happy.
You knew you had something.
Yeah. Right then it worked. And that one just worked well.
What else, Mike?
How did you go about like finding your first bourbon barrel to put your syrup in?
I drove down to Bardstown, knocked on doors, and
What'd you haul it in? What'd you haul your first barrel?
I hauled it in I had a 2000 Mitsubishi Montero with a trailer on the back of it, and I put 12 barrels on it, strapped on it.
So was it just an open trailer?
Open trailer.
And a Montero, is that like a SUV?
Yeah, small SUV. Small.
Was it a 4-cylinder, 6-cylinder?
It was a 6-cylinder, and I would.
So you cruised right down 75 then?
Yep.
Right down 75 all the way to Kentucky?
Yep.
And did you feel like your whole life was on that trailer?
It did. It was just seeing the whole mechanics of the distillery, the rick houses, getting back in there and smelling in the dump room. It was just really cool. I liked everything about it. Well, that lasted about 2 or 3 trips, and then we amped it up and started driving box trucks
Gotcha.
and filling up as much as we could.
Getting as much syrup. What is your favorite syrup profile to put in a bourbon barrel? Like, what flavor do you want?
I want pure, authentic maple flavor. I like a little bit of depth to it, so I like color and a little darkness to it. Caramel is absolutely okay, as long as it's not over caramel. You make some of the best syrup that I've ever tasted,
Hey, thanks.
bar none. And I think that's why the quality level of your barrel aging and your techniques is.
You can't use junk syrup.
You cannot.
You cannot use junk syrup.
Nope. It's the subtleties of aging in bourbon barrels. If the syrup isn't high quality, it's not dominant enough to cover up bad syrup.
Yeah, that's a common misnomer, isn't it? People
is.
think you can use bad syrup and cover it with bourbon flavor, and it just.
And then when you use bad syrup in bad barrels,
It's even worse.
it's even worse.
So
So you don't serve, when you have something like that, what we should tell all my cooks and chefs is if it really doesn't taste very good, don't serve a big portion.
like don't do a full 750 milliliter bottle.
Yeah. Just take a little teaspoon on your pancakes and don't put much more on it.
That's hilarious. I'm cool. I mean, if you want to talk about some
Let's
stuff.
talk about yourself. When we, you're never interviewed.
I don't know.
You know?
Well, what am I going to answer?
Well, I mean, you're just.
So you found him for bourbon barrel aged
Yeah.
maple syrup. So then, did you like start researching his process, come up with your own process? What led you into doing?
Well, he learned it on his own. I mean, all of a
Yeah,
sudden
he
he
messed
pops
up
up
a
and
lot.
said, "Hey, I got really good stuff here. You want to try it?" And I said, "We need to get together." And he's been all about legitimacy. And I would say, as far as this industry, he's the most legitimate person out there because he wants authentic product. He wants it high quality. Stands behind it.
And you and I both agree that there's some lesser quality product out there that we've talked in the past about.
Mm-hmm.
There needs to be some standards of identity. People need to be held accountable because it's hurting. The consumer's going to try these products and not buy anything.
Exactly.
They're just going to hurt. They're hurting the reputation of the barrel-aged maple syrup industry, or market, whatever you want to call it. But it is something now, and it's still going to grow. I mean,
Yeah.
I think maple and that oak, it just goes and it's going to be around.
It works.
So
Yeah.
you and I both agree that there's inferior product being sold. We just don't know, I guess, the next steps of how do we get.
Yeah, I think you've put your foot way forward more than anybody else, and it seems like people that are doing an inferior product kind of hide from some of the things like the Craft Maple Festival, that they don't want to be involved in it because I don't think they want their syrup judged. And I love the way you set that up with actually going through PhD testers on food science to understand to see if it really was spend time in a barrel.
So if you were going to set up a standard single-use bourbon barrel, one time
only.
in the spirit of bourbon,
Cannot use it again.
it doesn't work.
Nope.
So that would be if we were going to set up a standard, that would be a standard. One-time use bourbon barrel. What else are we seeing? Good quality maple syrup.
Key is the syrup. Second key is the processing, and making sure that that the delicate volatility of the flavor that is in that syrup when it's reheated and pasteurized needs to stay at a very constant temperature. Once you over that, you start to turn that syrup, and that the moisture that's left in there, it starts to evaporate in too much form, and so then it just leaves yourself with kind of a vacant flavor. So it's a delicate process, and I think that it's not for all processors. It's very easy to blow off a lot of the flavor by overboiling.
Oh my,
Back quickly.
I've overflowed a kettle. It'll definitely boil a little quicker than most.
Yeah.
syrups. I've done that a time or two. But creating a standard of identity within the maple industry, I think the maple industry has to drive it. A couple guys making barrel-aged maple syrup. All we can do is present it to
Right.
the powers that be and say, hey, these products are inferior.
Mm-hmm.
Try them. They know it. The farmers know it. And how do we hold the consumer needs to stop buying that garbage?
Yeah, the standard, well, as far as I know, the only person that has come out and really spoke about standard and quality and it has been you. You kind of spearheaded this whole, I would say it's almost a division of quality control. And how we put this together, I think the people that are making it right would like to be involved in it. I think the people that are making it wrong and they're doing it as fast as they can, or they don't have the skill set of the technology, and they're not producing a really high quality product, they probably won't be involved. So I think organizing.
That's a really good point.
Yeah, I think organizing, like you've been organizing, you're kind of the lone voice here of regulation, if you will. It's not really regulation.
Self-policing, but how much of it do I sound like a whiner?
Not at all.
You and I have a little bit of credibility in the industry, and
Well,
are we better off
you're
trying to encourage instead of shame?
Yes, I would say encouraging is the way to do it, but sometimes it's not.
Is it
It's
a
hard
good use
not
of
to take
energy?
a couple
Should we
shots.
just be focusing on the consumer that cares?
Right.
You know what I mean? How much of it's the consumer? We're focusing on the producers. The only reason those producers do it is because they have a customer. And maybe education of the customer is really the focus. Like trying to get somebody that's going to make an inferior product to start making a good product sounds like a lot of work. Is it consumer education? Are we wasting our time? If you're the standard and you say, hey, this is... I mean, I don't want to defame or say things negative about another brand, but have you tried Steve's maple syrup? Like, do a comparison. Like, I don't want to say something negative, so I'm going to say something positive. Have you tried Steve's maple syrup to compare? I mean, I'm trying to, how can we make it a positive thing as opposed to a whining gripe session? Because I don't know that anything will get done that way.
Yeah, I mean, really, it is informing the consumers.
It's informative, yeah,
But
absolutely.
the only thing that really stinks is the consumers, bourbon barrel aged, maple syrup, they'll grab it, spend money on it, and if it's crap, that's,
I mean, you're after such a small niche part of the, like,
Well, I think that with the advent of social media and the curiosity on YouTube and Instagram and channels, I think that we can get out a voice, and we can also communicate and try to cut to the chase a little bit and let people not have disappointed experiences. And it is what it is on cost. If you're doing a really high quality product, you're gonna pay more money for it, but you use less of it. You enjoy it more, and you're getting something that's in the top tier. And there's only a few of us, I think, doing that. And
in the top tier.
in the top tier, you are definitely one of them.
You're definitely one of them.
And I think we've got a couple other ones, and the rest they seem to be lost. To be honest with you, they don't really have an identity of how the product is supposed to taste at the end. And like I said, we're chefs. I'm just
a maple farmer.
You're a maple farmer, but with a good palate.
So the people that it's about margins. I feel like the products that we're tasting and the price points that is somebody in shiny shoes sitting behind a desk is like, we need profit.
Yeah, exactly.
Use worse syrup, and the process is probably like, can you still taste the garbage? No. So add more.
Price point and product movement. If it's cheaper, it's going to obviously sell faster. But will you get retention? That's what we see, that we have a lot of retention.
Yeah.
That we see people coming back, and they continue to buy it, and they once you taste it and you start drifting off into some of these other areas, and you kind of are disappointed, it would just go back.
So BLiS stands for because life is short.
That's right.
You came up with that.
Yeah.
That's pretty smart.
For not a smart guy. Yeah, it's and why
like that.
Really it's because life is short, so you eat and drink and enjoy all the good things in life while you're on this earth.
Man, this is fun. I've enjoyed myself the last 2 days with you.
I have too. It's not often that I get to sit down with legit, and that's a really good feeling. Plus, just a good all-around guy.
Hey, thanks, man.
He's a Ohio State fan.
Yeah, OH.
We could take a road trip down to your plant.
Oh, yeah. I was telling Sarah, she's got to meet my team.
Yeah.
Just even on sourcing, I think you'd be shocked how much
Yeah.
they know, what they can do. Glass, just
We
where
have
we
to
get
do-
glass. Like, my glass guys, that's a funny story.
Hey, Sarah.
Yo.
He's got some. You need to talk to him about glass.